Check out, we're good? Yes. Okay. طيب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we have taken a good source of preparation and resources, that which we feel is suitable at this particular junction to move forward, insha'Allah ta'ala, with the intended work, Bulug al-Maram min Adillat al-Ahkam lil-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala. This book, Bulug al-Maram min Adillat al-Ahkam, attainment of the objectives through the Adillat al-Ahkam, the proof and evidences of the ordinances or the legislation. This work by Al-Hafidh, rahimahullah ta'ala, is a work that is revered amongst the scholars. It is a brief work concerning the hadith of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is arranged and formulated upon the format of the books of fiqh. So we have two great avenues coming together in this particular work, a work which focuses on the authentic narrations of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, arranged upon the way of the books of fiqh. This is a great and monumental work. As Al-Hafidh rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that this material or work that he has produced and put forward for this ummah, it is a work or it is a production that is suitable for the beginning student, and it is a reference point for the veteran scholar. So this is a work that grabs the mind and the attention of every Muslim, regardless of where you are at on the scale. It is the beginning point of you starting to learn and become abreast of some of the ahadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon particular issues of fiqh. Or it is a reference point for the seasoned or learned scholar that he refers back to, or that she refers back to, or that they guide others that are learning back to and teach them from that particular work themselves. As we have mentioned, we are going to use the work of Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala as our primary explanation, and we are going to supplement it with explanations from the likeness of Shaykh Fawzan, Shaykh Abdullah al-Bassam, Shaykh al-Rajihi, al-Sana'ani, wa hakadha. Other scholars that have explanations upon this particular work, Bulug al-Maram. We are beginning with Kitab al-Tahara, the book of purification. Babul Miyah, the chapter of waters. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, قوله باب المياه. the statement of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, Bab al-Miyah. Bab meaning the door. In this case here, it is referring to the chapter. Al-Miyah, which is the plural for waters. The singular would just be ma. Uridu an ashraba ma'an. I want to drink water. Atawaddau min ma. I make wudu from water. Here the Shaykh is mentioning Babul Miyah, the chapter of not water, not Babul Ma, but Babul Miyah, the chapter of waters. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, قوله Babul Miyah, the statement of Ibn Hajar, the chapter of waters. جُمِعَتْ بِاعْتِبَارِ مَصَادِرِهَا. It has been presented in the plural form concerning its sources. Shaykh Uthaymeen initially and immediately is referring to the term that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala has utilized as the titling for the chapter itself, that he did not mention the chapter of water and then proceed, but he mentioned the chapter of waters, and he mentioned that it is being referred to as waters in the plural form in reference and regarding its sources and origin. This is very important because from here, Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala is lighting the spark that is going to open the door, the window, and the avenues of the topic of water itself. So he is initially referencing the affair that the titling of this chapter itself has been titled so because of the origins, plural, of water, meaning that there are various sources of water. لأن المياه, this is because waters, إما مياه البحار أو غمام أو آبار. And this is because water is either water of an ocean, one source, أو غمام is rainwater, the water that comes from the sky, أو آبار, or it is water that comes from a well, water that you dig in the earth to get. These are various and distinct sources of water. Nonetheless, all three of them are referred to as water, but the sources are distinct from one another. The water of the ocean is distinct from the water that comes from the sky, which is distinct from the water that is dug from the earth from a well. All three at the end of the day are referred to as water. But the sources and the origin of where the water has emanated, where it comes from, they are various and they are different. And this is why Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala is mentioning, this is why Ibn Hajar referred to as Babul Miyah, the chapter of waters, because of the origin and the sources of the waters itself. فَمِيَاءُ الْأَمْطَارِ, the water that now comes from the sky. هِيَ الَّتِي تَأْتِي مِنَ الْغَمَامِ, this is water that comes from the clouds. كَالْأَوْدِيَةِ وَالْغُدْرَانِ وَمَا أَشْبَهَ ذَلِكَ, and the likeness of water that comes from rivers, and the likeness of water that comes from ponds or creeks. وَمَا أَشْبَهَ ذَلِكَ, and whatever is similar to this. فَمِيَاءُ الْبِحَارِ مَعْرُوفَةٌ, and the water that is from the ocean, it is known and understood. وَكَذَلِكَ مِيَاءُ الْآبَارِ وَالْأَنْهَارِ, and likewise the water that comes from wells and the water that comes from rivers. فَلِهَذَا جَمَعَهَا الْمُؤَلِّفُ, for this reason, this is why the author has mentioned the water in its plural form. وَإِلَّا فَالْأَصْلُ أَنَّ الْمَاءَ جِنْسٌ وَاحِدٌ لَا يُجْمَعُ. He says, for other than this, that we know that water is really of one type. Other than this, we know that water is none other than one type. لا يجمع. It is not a gathering of various sources of water. I want to read you another statement from Sheikh Fawzan, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, concerning this very aspect of the tabweeb. The tabweeb refers to the bab, the chapter, or in this situation, the door. So when it is being mentioned by Ibn Hajar, Babul Miyah, Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, he referred to the water in the plural form regarding its sources and the origins of water. Although he said we know that water is of one type. Water is one type. Water is not something that is derived from gas, or it is derived from a solid, or it is derived from hakada. Check what they mean. He says we know that water is one type. Water is one type. Its origins and sources are various. It can come from the ocean. It can come from the sky. We can dig into the earth and take it from a well. These are the various sources. But all three at the end of the day are water. It is not something that is being derived from a rock, from a solid. It's not something that is being derived from a gas, whether we would say, yes, that is water from fluid or liquid, or that is water from gas, or that is water from solids. We would not say this. Sheikh Uthaymeen is mentioning that we all know at the end of the day, the asl, the origin of water is one. But it's being referred to in the plural form here with Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, regarding its sources and the origin. Where did you get that water from? It came from the ocean. Where did you get that water from? This is rain that came from the sky. Where did you get that water from? We dug into the earth. At the end of the day, all three of them are the same. It's water. Sheikh Fawzan, concerning the tabweeb, concerning the titling of the chapter, Babul Miyah by Ibn Hajar, he says, فَلِمَاذَا لَمْ يَقُولْ الْمُؤَلِّفِ بَابُ الْمَاءِ. He said, why did the author, Ibn Hajar, not say Babul Ma? Why did he not say the chapter of water? قالوا, they say it is because جمعها نظرا لأنواع الماء. He presented it in its plural form, considering and viewing the various types of water, the various categories of water. لأن الماء أنواع. And this is because water is of various types or categories. Various types or categories. منه طاهر ومنه نجس. From what we refer to as water, whether it comes from the sky, whether it is water that is from the ocean, whether it is water that you dig from the earth, those waters are either going to be referred to as tahir, is pure, or najis. At the end of the day, you would conclude that that water is now najis. فجمعها نظرا لأنواع الماء من حيث صحة الطهارة بها أو عدم صحة الطهارة بها. هذا وجه الجمع. he presented it in its plural form, considering and viewing the various categories of water, من حيث صحة الطهارة بها, concerning whether it is sound that you make purification with it, أو عدم صحة الطهارة بها, or it is not sound that you could make purification with it. هذا وجه الجمع. This is the avenue, هذا وجه. As we mentioned, this is the avenue, this is the manner, this is the perspective of the plural form of water with Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala. So with Shaykh Uthaymeen, you see he presents his perspective on why Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentioned Babul Miyah. He said, concerning its masadir, what are the avenues of its origin? Where does it come from? This is the avenue of why Ibn Hajar refers to as the chapter of waters, considering the sources. Shaykh Uthaymeen, or Shaykh Fawzan, hafidhahullah ta'ala, he says, the water has been presented in plural form by Ibn Hajar concerning whether the water is pure or najis, concerning whether the water is sound to make purification with, or it's not sound to make purification with. So these are two perspectives, just enlightening and broadening the awareness, the scope of how an individual may see. What is the understanding of the people of knowledge concerning this titling of Ibn Hajar in Bulug al-Maram, Kitab al-Tahara, the book of purification, Babul Miyah? Why did he mention waters? And we all know that water is only of one type. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, because of the sources and the origins. Shaykh Fawzan says, because of the classification now is going to be an issue of whether the water is pure or is impure. Can the water be utilized for purification? Can this water now not be utilized for purification? From here you can see, as we've mentioned, Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he has ignited the spark to give you the understanding that there is discussion amongst the people of knowledge concerning the purification that utilizes water from various sources. There is discussion amongst the people of knowledge concerning purification with water from various sources, specifically where Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, begins his chapter. Water from the ocean, or that seawater. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, in presenting an introduction to this particular narration that is going to come, Jazakallahu khair. He says, وَلِلْمَاءِ الطُّهُورُ قَاعِدَةٌ وَهِيَ. And this is very important. As we have mentioned, in preparation for this class, we incited and we encouraged the individuals to get a multi-section notebook. 4, if not 5. One section would refer back to the actual explanation of the hadith itself. As we go through, you just write down your notes, the explanation of the narration. That would be one chapter. Your second chapter would be for the fawaid, the benefits that are revolving around the affair of tafsir. There are going to be some points of tafsir, just in general, that you're going to want to now start to build and amass. You want to gather them together collectively. You don't want to scatter through your notes on purification looking for a principle of tafsir. Start the collection now. We encourage the individuals. It's not obligatory. It was a preference. Learn from my mistakes. and the encouragement of the people of knowledge, categorize your notes. And we encourage the people to have a 4, if not 5 section binder, notebook, reference point for this class that they would utilize. The first section you will utilize for the explanation of the hadith itself. Gather up all of those notes in one section. Book of purification, the chapter of water, they're all in one section. There will be points of benefit that are exclusive to tafsir that will surface through this work. Exclusively gather them in one section, point by point, referencing where it came from, what scholar said it, what was the proof, what was the reference point, where did it come from, what particular book, wahakadha. That would be 2. Your third section would be hadith. This is a book of hadith. You will find, even if you do not amass an abundance of notes, they will be impregnated with benefit and knowledge. That would be your third. Al-Rabi', your fourth would be fiqh. The benefits that are taken from this specifically concerning fiqh. That the Sheikh, he says, this is not exclusive to tahara. This is not exclusive to purification. Or if we moved on to another chapter and he mentioned, وَهَا هُنَا قَاعِدَةٌ. From here we have a qa'idah. It's not exclusive to wudu. It's not exclusive to the ghusl. It's not exclusive to tayammum. وَهَكَذَا. Take that qa'idah as well as in the general notes if you wish. Make sure you have a reference point for the qawa'id of usul that you can go back to. And then you have that which is mutanawwi', various. Different points of benefit. Not specifically hadith. Not specifically tafsir. Not specifically fiqh. Something just in general. It could have come from the book of purification, chapter of water. It could have come from the book of wudu. It could have come from the book of the ghusl. It's just a general benefit. It was mentioned in wudu. It could have surfaced in the ghusl. It may reiterate itself in tayammum. It's just a general benefit. You take points of benefit and note to make sure that it makes your reference easier. At the end of the day, even if we just concluded Babul Miyah, and there are somewhat less than 20 narrations, if you would say, and we said there's a specific point of benefit that we're looking for. Can anyone reference this point of benefit? By the time we concluded just the book of waters, you would have so many notes. If you're not a great note taker, you will not be able to produce it on the spot. You will have to say, I have to go back and check. I'll bring it for you next class. Make it easier. Sectionalize as we move forward. There will be some things that you will do on your own. You say, I'm putting this here. Maybe you will devise another category. There will be some things I will encourage you. Store this with tafsir. This is a great point concerning tafsir. What I see, I will encourage you with. What you see from your own eye, follow it as well. Because as you grow and develop, you will see whether it's placed in a suitable manner or there should be some adjustments that take place. That's the growth process that will take place, inshallah ta'ala. Is that a question, Sheikh? كل مفعول به. نعم. هذه مؤنث. It has a reference point. It has a reference point. The specifics of it will come through tafsir, but it has a reference point. There will be some discussions that, as we move along the line, maybe through the chapter of the ghusl, things that necessitate the ghusl. Al-ma'u min al-ma'. The water of the ghusl is from the water that you excrete, if you would say, or that you emit. So there is a reference point that will come up later on in general that not necessarily specifically is the tafsir of that verse, but it is from the madmoon, from that which is entailed, incorporated inside of the verse. So that, inshallah ta'ala, I believe is going to come with Bab al-Ghusl, the chapter of the Ghusl, when we talk about water in the sense of mankind's creation, being a source of what will necessitate a ghusl, inshallah ta'ala. وَسَيَأْتِي, inshallah ta'ala. It will come, inshallah. Naam, there was a sister. Naam. Your first notes, and these are just being thrown out haphazardly, if you would say. You could arrange the order and sequence as you like, but there will be notes in general that will be just from the hadith of the book itself, the general notes from Babul Miyat, a little less than 20 narrations, 17 or 18. You will keep all of those in one section. Then there will be a section for notes that are specific to tafsir, that you would say, I got it from the book of purification, but this is a principle of tafsir. Or it's a principle of tafsir that you got from the bab of the ghusl, or wudu, or tayammum, or removal of impurities, wahakadha. Then you would have one for hadith. This would be your third category. You would have a chapter for hadith principles and benefits, specifically on hadith. They just surfaced in the book of purification. Then you would have a chapter for fiqh. These are issues specifically revolving around fiqh. They're just surfacing in purification, the chapter of water. It could be the chapter of the wudu. It could be the removal of impurities, wahakadha. And then you want that which is, as they refer to as miscellaneous. These are just various points of benefit. I'm just amassing all of them, but I'm keeping them all together because they can go from left to right. But it's not specifically hadith. It's not specifically tafsir. It's not specifically fiqh. And it's not specifically a point of benefit taken from the narrations from the chapter of waters. Now, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Say it again. Definitely, inshallah ta'ala. And again, if from whatever is presented you feel it beneficial for yourself, to store it as you like. It's only my recommendation that I've amassed over some time, heard from the people of knowledge, seen other works. This is a way that will help you review when you want to just go back now and you want to review the book of purification. If you amassed all your notes in one location, you're not going to be able to summarize it. This work of Bulug Maram is a book of summarization. It's abbreviated. The Sheikh mentioned, I only took the critical points of the narration and he left the rest of the narration. You don't want your notes from that to become volumes. So you want to follow that same sequence. That, inshallah ta'ala, will help keep you along those lines. But Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions here, وَلِلْمَاءِ الطُّهُورِ قَاعِدَةٌ وَحِيَةٌ. For water that is pure, we have a qa'idah, we have a principle concerning pure water. And And that principle is أن كل ماء, every water, نزل من السماء, that descends from the sky, أو نبع من الأرض, or it shoots forth from the earth, فإنه طهور مطهر, فإنه طهور مطهر, that water itself is pure within itself and it purifies. This is very important. I found some bigger markers. The drawback, they're angled. So it will look like calligraphy even if I'm just trying to write standard. So it's not intended. So hopefully we hope it brings some benefit. You can see a little further back so you don't have to take pictures and expand, inshallah. You were saying? Tell you. The first one, notes from the narrations. So as we're going through Babul Miyah, the chapter of waters, you're just going to take notes. The first hadith, notes. The second hadith, notes. The third hadith, notes. وهكذا. Umuman, just in general. The second one, and likewise. And as such. Secondly, notes on tafsir. These are notes that if you study tafsir, these points will come up. They're guiding points of tafsir. Separate them from the general notes. Thirdly, I'm just going to do that. Hadith. Notes on hadith. It may come up in the Shaykh, he mentions a particular qaida, a particular point of benefit, reference. And you say, this is more exclusive to hadith. If I want to go back and study hadith, I want this incorporated. That is something that you should put here, as opposed to your general notes. 4 notes on fiqh. Fifth, finally, notes on various topics. It could be biography, it could be history, it could be dealing with language, various points. Ameen. So the Shaykh is mentioning وَلِلْمَاءِ الطُّهُورِ قَائِدَةٌ وَهِيَ, every water that descends from the sky or that springs forward and gushes from the earth, فَإِنَّهُ طُهُورٌ مُطَهِّرٌ. طهور مطهر. This, the water itself being tahor, is pure within itself. Allah mentions in the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. We send down from the skies, ma'an, water, tahurun, is pure. This is the quality, this is the description of the water that Allah mentions, He sends down. This is the quality of all waters. This is not exclusive for water that comes from the sky, rainwater. This is the quality of all waters. Mutahhir. This is where the book of purification, the chapter of waters, this is where the distinction, this is where the classification, this is where the allowances lie. The water, yes, it is pure within itself, but does it purify other? It is water that, yes, you may be able to drink. It's water seasoned, it's water flavored, wahakadha. But is it water that purifies? Could you use it for wudu? Could you use it for a ghusl? Could you use it to remove impurities? Wahakadha. The Shaykh is mentioning, this is a qa'idah, this is a principle. Shaykh Uthaymeen is beginning this before we even get to the narration. This is showing you how critical this qa'idah is. Before we even touch the narration, have this principle in your pocket. Know that every water that comes down from the sky, and inside of that, we're also going to include, although it is understood, we just want to mention it. Snow, sleet, and hail. They all are water. There are various forms of how the water is coming down. At the end of the day, we do not believe that any sound mind person is going to say, no, that is not water, it is something else. It is water in a particular form, shape, or fashion. So every water that comes from the sky, regardless of form, water that comes from the earth, the Shaykh is mentioning, فَإِنَّهُ طَهُورٌ مُطَهِّرٌ. It is pure within itself, and it purifies. وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً. Sorry, I'm going to get to that, inshallah. فَمِيَاءُ السُّيُولِ. And the water that now flows or goes with the stream. سواء كانت أودية تمشي. Regardless of if it is water that is running in a stream. أم غدرانا راكدة. Oh, it is water that is stagnant and it doesn't move. أم نقعا في السباخ. Or it is swamp water. The Shaykh is mentioning water that comes from the earth. Regardless if that water is flowing in a stream, regardless if that water is sitting stagnant in a pond, it's not moving. It does not move. It does not bring in water and it does not let out water. It just sits. Or regardless if it's a swamp water. أم غير ذلك, or other than that, كلها طهور. All of these various types of water, طهور, pure. طال عليها الزمن أم قصر. Regardless if the water has been in this condition for a lengthy duration of time or for a short span of time. فللإنسان أن يتوضأ منها ويغتسل من الجنابة. An individual could utilize that water for wudu and for a ghusl. ولا يسأل عنها. And he's not asked or questioned about it. وكذلك مياه البحار. And likewise, water from the ocean. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, now he's expanding a little bit more from what was given initially concerning the origins of water. Water that came from the sky. Water that came from the earth. Now he's mentioning, or water that you would dig from the earth. Now he's mentioning The qaida concerning these various sources and origins of water, all of them are pure and they are purifiers within themselves. Meaning the water itself is pure. There's no hazard, there's no caution that you have to utilize when engaging the water. To say, no, this is something that I can't touch. Or I have to cleanse myself from it. Ocean water. It smells salty. I have to clean myself from it. It's pure within itself. The discussion of this work primarily is going to now focus on, does it purify? What purifies? These various sources and origins of water. Based on what is going to be presented in the book of purification, you're going to see narrations that are going to discuss water that has been utilized, water that remains, water that has been, quote unquote, contaminated. These are various elements that will come within this work that will extend upon this particular discussion. The origin and the asl of water, tuhur, mutahhir, is pure within itself. It purifies other than itself. It's pure within itself, meaning it can, if we would say, it can defend and neutralize properties against itself. The water can neutralize properties and defend itself. Water of the ocean, things that die inside of that ocean, things that are thrown into the ocean, the property of the water itself, the compound of the water itself is able to purify itself. Is able to defend itself from within itself. The discussion concerning fiqh now that starts to elevate on different levels. Is there a point where it loses the property to purify others? To say that we wouldn't say that the water is impure, but it's lost this particular quality. And this, moving forward, is where you're going to have to place your attention. This is where the bulk of the conversation is going to rest upon. It's not if the water is pure within itself, is the discussion. The discussion is going to mount upon levels and accelerate. Has it lost the potential to purify other than itself? Because I need water that can purify other than itself if I want to perform wudu. I need water that can pure other than itself if I want to perform a ghusl. I need water that can purify other than itself if I want to remove impurities. Not so much has the water itself lost its own capability to purify itself or be referred to as water. So this is very important. What? No. This is very important. We are talking about water. And that is understood. But I want to bring it back to attention and I want to highlight it because this is the quality of water. There will be a time and a place within the discussions that come, the scholars, they will say, it has lost this term, so whatever was here has gone with it. And this is very important to understand how these pieces are connected. It is babul miyah because of origins or sources, or because of whether it's pure or impure, whether it can purify or it's not able to purify, going back to the statement of Sheikh Fawzan. There will be a point in time, if you are able to draw back to this and say, is it water? Because if it is, I have a qa'idah that Sheikh Uthaymeen mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala. And that qa'idah is that every water that comes from the sky, every water that comes out of the earth, whether the water is running, whether the water is stagnant, whether the water is swampy, is pure within itself, it is purifying and other than itself. Suitable for wudu, suitable for the ghusl from janaba, as he's mentioned, and other than this. This is the qa'idah. When all else fails, we say default. Go back to the drawing board. Those qawa'id, those qa'idas, they are the drawing point, where we start from. When everything starts to fall apart, when it starts to get chaotic, it starts to go haywire, we say, hold on, slow down, take a deep breath, press the reset button. You press the reset button, these principles come to the forefront and they say, utilize me before you talk about anything else. When it comes to water, these are the qualities of water. As mentioned by the Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. It's pure. Pure within itself, purifies other than itself. Because that water is the water that we're utilizing for wudu. We're utilizing that water for the ghusl. We're utilizing that water for the removal of impurities. This is very important. Fadl.
Now, swampy water sometimes might have malaria or might be dangerous for some animals in it, whatever. But I know you can talk about water itself. It might be bad to put in your mouth or your nose, like swampy type water sometimes.
Okay.
Because of impurities of the insects or whatever.
So what would be the question? No, serious. I'm saying that for a reason. I'm saying that for a reason.
Put in your mouth or your nose because of malaria or something on the edges of the water. Kind of thing.
Okay.
It might have alligators or something. We're just talking about the water itself.
Okay, so a pond that has an alligator inside of it. What's the ruling on the water? It's tahur. Mutahhir. Forget the alligator. The alligator is not going to have any impact on the purification of the water.
Insects, mosquitoes, on the edges might have malaria or something. You still intake it in your mouth and your nose.
Well, this is not an issue of if the water is pure or not. This is an issue of whether there's harm concerning the utilization of that water. Just like the companion that had the injury that took place during one of the travels that they were upon, and he became junub through sleep. He became junub. He had a dream, which necessitated a ghusl. He asked the companions, what is my condition? What do I need to do? They mentioned, we find no other course for you except to perform a ghusl, utilizing the water, pure water. No alligator, no mosquitoes, no malaria. He utilized the water and it causes death. So now it's an issue of not the water if it's pure. Is there any harm behind the usage of the water? So this is what your point, and that's why I was driving you towards that area. So we can get away from the discussion of what refers to the water and now what refers to what is an additional external aspect of the water. That's not an internal aspect of the water. That's an external aspect of the water. Inshallah ta'ala, that is going to come. There are statements from the people of knowledge concerning that. They're external. In a nutshell, you do not harm yourself. Anything that causes harm to you, you do not do. If it was a situation of pure, clear, warm water, but your doctor has told you you cannot utilize anything moist or any type of fluid in this particular area of your body, it's going to either harm you or, as mentioned by Sheikh Uthaymeen and others, is going to delay your healing process. It's not going to hurt you, it's just going to delay it. You avoid it because it's a harm. Because the goal is siha, the goal is health. And what removes you from that is a harm. And we're not allowed to harm ourselves. But that is an external aspect of the water. That's why I was pushing with that. A lot of times, if you feel me, if you would say riding you or getting on you, it's not personal. I'm not trying to, anyone, I'm not trying to belittle you. It's something that I might see in your questioning that I see of greater benefit. We need to go that way. I'm going to push you that way. So, no. Sit down. Okay, so now we have a science experiment, if they would say, right? Does everybody see this? Yes. I'm going to put this here. Huh? No, that's Mufti. That's Mufti. May Allah preserve our brother. It gets heavy when you add the water. Yes, this is salt. This is pink Himalayan salt. It says it on top. Right? It's open. Tell you. DJ Maxx. And it's oil. This is olive oil. So the container contains water. This is water from the bathroom. This is tap water. Yeah. We don't drink. We might not. I've never drunk in East Orange water since I've moved to New Jersey, and it's been over 20 years. New York water is better, but I'm just still a little cautious with New York water too. However, this water is water, so it falls under this category. It has these qualities until we know other than that. The also by default, we start here. So the water that came out of there, which is in here, is pure within itself. I could utilize that water to perform wudu. As individuals within that, they use that water to perform the wudu, and they use it to remove impurities. Maybe even a ghusl. Maybe even a ghusl. But now I have olive oil. It's a pure additive. Olive oil is not najis. It's not harmful. Salt is pure. It's not harmful. In here, we have leaves come from the tree, and we have some dirt comes from the earth. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for you from amongst his favors and his bounties and from the glorification of his greatness and magnificence is what he has given you. That is part of the understanding of the verse. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. جميعا is from the alfaz umum. Alfaz min al-alfaz al-umum. It's from amongst the wordings of generality. جميعا. فسجدوا الملائكة أجمعين. All of the angels, they prostrated. All of them. It's from umum. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا, everything that he has created for you within the earth, the qa'idah that is associated with that, if he's given it to us as a favor, is pure. We have to understand that. Is that you, Sheikh? That everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, the asl, the foundation and origin of how we view it, how we engage it, is pure. So the water we understood by text was pure. Every content of the earth we understand by text is pure. The discussion, the question that I want to pose before we even get into the works, is going to start to probably reshape how you see the sunnah. Because the way you see this water is through the eye of the sunnah. It's not personal. Unless you've tainted the eye of the sunnah with your personal perspective. And we're not going to think anyone has done that. We're just going to think the way they see it is the way they see the sunnah, be it correct or incorrect. But that is the way you and I see the sunnah. This container here that has the olive oil, can I utilize this for wudu? You said yes. A sidebar. What I want to take off the table concerning this discussion is the amount. Just look at the water and say this could have been a tub full of water. Right. Because some people will say there is a discussion concerning the amount of water now. Let's throw that out. I want to get to our principle. That narration comes later on down the line for a reason. So now we're dealing with like a tub full of water. And you say, wow, this is like a jacuzzi, akhi. And you say, oh, it has some oil in it. And you say, well, you need to make a ghusl, akhi. And he says, well, you have olive oil in there. So now we're at a standstill. You say, akhi, are you going to utilize the water or not? There's other people waiting. Do you utilize this water to perform your wudu or your ghusl? Sheikh says no. It's not specifically I want answers from individuals. I just want a response. You say yes.
I would say yes one way and no another way.
Okay, well, tell me why.
Yes, because everything within it is pure.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the oil, medically I'm thinking about the oil. And if someone sticks with oil, would that be a harm to them because of the way that the oil is being ingested into their body?
Is that an internal discussion of the water or is that an external discussion of the water? We want an internal discussion of the water. This water, is it pure to utilize for purification? He says yes. He says yes. He says. Sheikh, you say no. Why? I'm going to write this down. He's mentioning now, you said for a number of affairs, you said its color has changed. You said what else? Its taste. And he's mentioning smell. And this is all in reference to there is a change. There is a change. Is it safe to say that you would say that with all of these containers? What about the salt? You said, okay, so we'll check that box too. And what about the leaves and the dirt?
Because it's still clear water, it's just that nature has fallen into the water.
Okay. I'm going to say this, and this is not to scold anyone. And the reason I'm prefacing my statement with that statement is because the companions themselves asked the Messenger of Allah والسلام, concerning the condition of water of the ocean. So there are some affairs that naturally you will be inquisitive as to its ruling to say, is it allowed? Is it not allowed? What is its condition? But just like the affair of abrogation of khamr, initially it was allowed, then it went to a position of drink, but don't come to the prayer intoxicated. Then they got to a position of cannot drink at all, regardless of prayer. So now we can't bring people through these steps when encouraging them to accept Islam and say, okay, well, continue to drink, just don't come to the prayer intoxicated. Say, "Akhi, that door is closed now. That's abrogated. Alcohol is no longer allowed. It is impermissible for him at this day and time, just like it is for you and I. Would you tell yourself you allowed to drink, you just can't come to it? Exactly. So the reason I'm saying that is because these rulings and these determinations have already been factored. These rulings and determinations have already been factored. Yes, some of them are differed upon amongst the people of knowledge, whether you go left or right. And based off of what has been presented to you is what has scoped your vision of the sunnah. A, B, and C, permissible for wudu, permissible for the ghusl, permissible to remove impurities. Why? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I got where you're coming from. And it's a beautiful discussion. The Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, inside the narration, it mentions, إن الماء طهور لا ينجسه شيء إلا ما غلب على ريحه أو طعمه أو لونه. Water is pure. لا ينجسه شيء. It will not become impure, except if something overtakes, changes, or alters its rih, smell, as you've mentioned. طعمه, its taste, as you've mentioned. وَلَوْنُهُ, or its color, as you have also mentioned. But one thing that is critical inside the narration, لَا يُنَجِّسُهُ, it won't become najis. Is this najis? Is this najis with anyone?
It's not enough.
Is it najis? There is a difference.
But if it's more olive oil than water, then change.
No, that's not the discussion. The discussion is it najis? Because the discussion concerning those three qualities are revolving around whether it becomes impure. Impure meaning najis. Not that there's an alteration, not that there's a change, not that there's a shift in the quality of the water. Sheikh Fawzan, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, when mentioning the affair of Babul Miyah, the waters, he mentioned because it's either going to be one of two affairs. It's water that is tahir or it's najis. This is prefacing with the people of knowledge, depending on how you look at it, there are either three categories of water or there are two. With the people of knowledge, there are either three categories of water or there are two. This is hard. The first one, the water is tuhur. The second, the water is tahir. The third, the water is najis. Tuhur, of course, we see from here, is pure within itself. Tahir, meaning the water is pure within itself, but it lost this. Can't purify nothing else with it, but it's not this. There is a distinction now from jumping from here to here. Just like a hadith that would be sahih, the hasan, and da'if. Because there is some weakness to a hasan hadith, we're not just going to say, oh, it's da'if. Because there is some alteration to the water that has taken place, we're not just going to say, oh, it's najis, which means that we can't utilize that water for purification. So this is what is entailed in the discussion that is coming along the line. There are some of the scholars, they have this particular classification of water. It's 3 categories. Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh Fawzan, they said, look, this is all you have. If you have this, you have this, I have this, 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 I make wudu with all 3. Sheikh Uthaymeen mentions the example. This could be the water that he mentioned in the discussion when we began. The water that is in a pond, standing still. It's not moving. There's no water that's coming into it, that's constantly feeding it, which would mean what? That water is being refreshed. There's no lead off for it where you would say, well, impurities could fall out of it, and when new water comes in, it could refresh. Nothing's coming in, nothing's coming out. It's water that's standing still, just like this. Picture this, a pond as big as this room. There's leaves that are falling from the trees. There's dirt that's lining. And Sheikh what they mean, he mentions somebody runs across the edge of the pond. It snatches up the dirt along the side of the water. It's time for us to make wudu. Now it's become a little cloudy. The person's like, that's dirty water. And I say, well, you see dirty water. I see water that's pure. Because it has not changed with anything that is impure. This is the beauty of this discussion, and that which is going to come from the statements to the people of knowledge. Water that has not changed by something that is impure, if at the end of the day, Sheikh, would you look at this and still say that it's this? Not saying what's with it. Is it at the end of the day, when you looked at that pond, yes, you know there was leaves in it. Yes, you know that there was dirt around it. Yes, you know that there's rocks in there. Yes, you know that there might be maybe a duck swimming on top of it. Would you still refer to it as this? No, not yet. You would. So where did it lose this? So then we can do whatever we want with it in terms of purification. There's the asl. Sheikh Uthaymeen gave us the asl. He gave us the qaida. Everything concerning water that comes from the sky, that's within the earth, that runs or stays stagnant, even swamp water, he mentioned, even swamp water is pure within itself. It purifies other than itself. The issue here, or why I presented this, because people get a little confused when they see something added with it, and we understand the conversation of impurities that now affect water. We gather and couple everything all together. Same category, it's impure. Salt, impure. Olive, impure. Urine, impure. Feces, impure. Vomit, impure. We say there's a distinction of water that is changed by impurity is impure by consensus. It doesn't matter the amount, whether it's a large body of water, a small body of water. If the water changes with impurity, taste, color, or smell, only one is necessary. You don't have to have all 3. If there is a change of taste or color or smell by impurity, it's najis, discard it. Can't utilize it for anything. And impurity cannot remove impurity. So you can't turn around and say, well, I'm going to use it to remove something later on. You can't utilize it itself. It's lost the quality to purify once it becomes najis. The other discussion now, which is important, If it's not here, it has to be here. So a person says, well, what's the limitation? Oh, I need a little napkin for this. The limitation is when it loses this name, it's no longer this, it's salt. It's salt. We refer to now, this is salt water. We wouldn't, Jazakallahu khair. We wouldn't refer to it and say it's water. It has some salt inside of it. There's a distinction now. In general, referring to something and then classifying it as something associated with something else. It was water before we put the salt inside of it. We added the salt to it. It just made it a little salty. It didn't change by an impurity, by something that's najis. So it still remains tuhur. You keep adding salt, adding salt, adding salt. The person says, I don't even recognize there's water inside of here, but I understand that it's there. There's no reminiscence of that which is water inside of here. Although we know it's in there, it's lost this term. You would not refer to that as water. You tell the kids, oh, go bring me the water on the counter. They would not bring you this if it was continued to be poured inside of it with salt. So there is a level and a distinction. Yes, the water itself can change with something that's not impure. What's the boundary? There's no head. It's looked at and it's understood. When it loses this name, it's no longer containing these qualities. I lost the ability to perform wudu and al-ghusl with it. Now, the istihala, just something being pure and allowed. Now, this is istihala. The root words are still the same, if you would say. However, its usage now is being referred to as a process of alteration. We've discussed this, well, maybe not here. We've discussed this in the past. We've studied this in the past. This, for me, it was over 10 years ago. Quick story, inshallah ta'ala. Me and the brother Abdul Latif Fish, hafidhahullah, may Allah preserve him. We went on the first trip with Zahid and albasira.org over 10 years ago. Yarhamakallah. We were able to sit with plenty of the mashayikh, from amongst them, Sheikh Muhammad Bazmoul. And he taught us purification. And he dealt with this issue of istihala. It is a position that is chosen by the likenesses of the scholars of the past, such as Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and of our present, Shaykh Uthaymeen, and others. This is the process of where something that is known impure is interfaced with something that is pure. So let's say now the person says, from amongst the ingredients inside of the jello, and this was the actual example that Sheikh Muhammad Bazmoul utilized, because of the lard that is utilized for jello and making muffins, and so I had to stop eating Jiffy and stuff. So yeah, I liked it. It was good. It was good. Huh? Well, why you stopped eating it? Yeah. Well, why you can't eat the original one? Okay, so this is the issue now. There is pork that is stated it is utilized as an ingredient. Let's just say it's 5 ingredients, and lard, which is clear pork. So the person, we don't have to worry about the person say, oh no, it's vegetable shortening, it's not animal. It's clearly specified. This is lard. This is from the animal's intestine or whatever the situation is. Even if it said it wasn't pork, it was from the pig. I mean, it was from the cow. This is intestines, and the animal is not killed in a proper manner. It's meta, it's najis. Can't utilize that as well at the same time. But we're just going to clear pork. Everybody knows, stay away from pork no matter what. One of the 5 ingredients now. You whip up the jello. You put it in the fridge to let it cool and solidify and gel. Now it comes out. Maybe it's cherry flavor. Is there any color, taste, or smell of the lard in the final product? So how can you rule upon it being impure? الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. The ruling of something is accompanied by its reason. When the reason is present, the ruling is present. When the reason is absent, the ruling is absent. How can you rule upon something being impure when nothing of its qualities are present? How can you tell that woman she does not have to pray when her menstrual cycle has ended? There's no trace of the blood. What's the difference? 2 different examples, but the principle. الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. The ruling upon the jello being impure was because of the presence of the impurity. It was present. You don't just stamp it on the box when we say it's impure. No. It's an article. It's either there's a taste, color, and smell. You see it, it's going inside of it, and you say, okay, initially we're ruling upon it. That right there, don't mess with that. Now there's a process of things being mixed up. Then there's a process of extreme heat taking place. Then at the final product, when you pull it out and you serve it up on the table, and then we look and we say, there's no taste, there's no color, there's no smell of the impurity, which was lard. So how can you now rule upon it being impure and there's no quality of its presence present? That's like urine being on the floor. You go and you wipe it up. Then you tell someone it's okay to pray. And he said, no, the floor is impure. And we said, no, I cleaned it. He said, no, but it was there. But we said, now, is the floor being ruled upon as being impure by a quality that is present now, or it was present previously? So I'm going off of what's now. So now it's pure. Yes. Then you could pray. Yes. Now the impurity is not present in the jello. Is it now? He says, no. So can I eat it? هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Everything is permissible and allowed for you to eat, except a text that tells you you can't eat that. Goes back. Istihal has now taken place. They do the same thing with water. There are some processing plants that could take this and return this back to the water that's running in that faucet in the bathroom. Correct? That process is a process of istihala. The specifics of it is not important. The process is, if at the end of the day, the qualities of impurity, because this water here itself is not necessarily going to have a specific taste, color, or smell specific to it that you would say, this is water. When one of those 3 qualities are present from an impurity, then we say, no, this is najis. This is impure. You can't utilize this water. You urinate in water, you see the color change. You smell the change. If you were put to drink it, you would taste a change. You rule upon that water being impure because of qualities present that have changed. When those qualities disappear or they're absent, you cannot rule upon something being impermissible without the qualities of it being impermissible. You cannot just out of the blue tell a woman, don't pray for the next 3 weeks. She says, why? Because when women are upon their menstrual cycle, they don't pray. And she says, well, my menstrual cycle is not here. And we say, well, just don't do it because we know they have the menstrual cycle and it comes. But she says, no, I wait for the blood before I know to stop praying. The ruling of her stop praying is based on the presence of the blood. It's not the timing of the calendar. She said, oh, it should have been here, so I'm going to stop praying. No. Al-hukmu yaduru ma'a illati. The ruling of you stop praying is based off of the presence of the blood. And the likeness of its absence returns you back to fasting and praying. So this is very important. With that particular conversation, it was so breathtaking for me. I was sitting on one side, Abdul Latif was sitting on the other side, and we looked at each other, and we had this look in our face, and we said, do you realize what everybody back in the United States is doing? We got a book, Halal and Haram, just based off of what is ingredients, not a process. And we, at the same time that we had that look, when we looked at each other, we coupled that look with, if you go back and say something about this, exactly. And for years, we both sat side by side, moving about East Orange, looking at each other sideways in a sense. When are we going to say something? When is something going to be said? Because for us to say it, we learned it overseas. The sheikh didn't come here and the masjid and it was spread. We learned it overseas in a hotel room or in a hotel hall, if you would say. And it was recorded, but it was even the students, that had told the students, you guys are here all year. They're not. You cannot come into the room with them. It was very exclusive. It was very private, but it was informative. But could you imagine if we have come back over 10 years and go and say, everybody can eat jello now. Oh, that toothpaste, now you can utilize that. Oh, that chewing gum, oh, no, you can do that. They said, this brother, don't mess with him. Don't mess with him. It's always been there, though, from the works of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. It just wasn't on our scope. It wasn't in our radar. No. It's a qaida. Everything, ya Sheikh. Everything. Everything. No, sister, go ahead. I got you. I'm with you. Wujudan wa adaman. This is the ta.
I know a lot of people looking for the U and the K.
The U and the K.
Yeah, so the guy that walked it out.
It's a possible avenue.
But a lot of products don't have that.
And this is the gene.
Affiliate with the Jews.
الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. And this being present or absent is referring back to the illah. The ruling refers back, the ruling revolves and is centered around whether it is accompanied by the reason for it. It is a ruling revolving or centered around whether it is accompanied by its reason or purpose. When that reason or purpose is present, the ruling is present. When that reason or purpose is absent, the ruling is absent. So the ruling is now based upon the reason. What is the purpose that it has been made and permissible? Let's use the women's menstrual cycle because it's something all of us can relate to. Illa. علته مع علته. الحكم يدور مع علته. وجودا, being present, وجود. وعدما, معدوم, is absent, is vacant, is gone, not present. الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. One more time. The ruling is centered or revolves around its reasoning or purpose. Wujudan wa adaman. When its ruling, when its reasoning is present, the ruling is present. When its reasoning or purpose is absent, its ruling is absent. What is the reason why women do not pray when, or what would we, this is better. What is the ruling of women when their menstrual cycle is present concerning prayer? So we have here now al-hukm, we have a ruling. No prayer. This is revolving and is centered around what? What's the illah? What's the reasoning? Why is there no prayer? So I can summarize that as far as blood. I'm just going to say blood, even though we know it's menstrual blood. This ruling will take place based off of this. When it is present, that will be its ruling. When this is not present, this ruling will not be present. Yes, yeah. Either darabtum fil ard, when you have hit the path, if you would say. Can't just be, well, I have the niyyah to travel, it's Ramadan, you just break your fast. Exactly, yeah, wait till you start traveling. All these things are entailed all together. But the illah, this is a example that we believe everyone can grasp. Al-hukmu yaduru ma'a illatihi wujudan wa adaman. I'll check for you. The thing about the qawaids, especially these are like from the subsidiary, these are not the five major. They come from various sources, various texts. They're derived from text. There's no author in terms of Imam Shafi'i thought something nice one day and he just penned this term. No. These terms come from narrations, principles that are drawn from them. That we say, you can take this from purification to ghusl, to wudu, to tayammum, to removal of impurities. Al-hukmu yaduru ma'a illatihi. When you say, akhi, in terms of, let's say with purification. Let's say the dog, he's licked your cup. The dog is coming by, he's licked your cup. Now you have to discard the water and you have to wash it 7 times. And the person, he says, nah, he to remove impurities. The Prophet ﷺ, he just told the people, throw the water over the urine in the masjid. All you have to do is just run something over it. We say, no. This particular situation has a particular ruling based off of the dog being involved now. Al-hukmu, washing 7 times, yuduru ma'a illatihi, because of the licking of the dog, not the purification of an individual or the defecation of an individual. 7 times present with the licking of the dog of a vessel or a container. When that is not the case, we are not washing 7 times. This is some of the things that take place, if you would say, There are various examples, but all of the qawaid, they're taken from nusus, whether it's Quran or hadith. They're not from the penmanship of any of the scholars. That is very important. These terms that you will look at and say, oh, that's a clever idea. And you say, this is a qaida extracted from text. None of this is from the ulama. They've extracted and coined the term, but its reference point is from a text. That's very important. Now, let me take some of the sisters. The ruling revolves or is centered around its purpose or reasoning. When that purpose or reasoning is present, its ruling is present. When that purpose or reasoning is absent, its ruling is absent. الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. وإن كنتم جنبا فطهروا. And if you are junub, then perform a ghusl. Any individual just comes up to you and says, Akhi, you don't look clean. I think you need to perform a ghusl. Say, Akhi, where you get this from? You know, say, as for your health, you look better, you look fresher, and so forth. Say, Akhi, you cannot obligate me to take a ghusl. The ghusl is based off of text. Al-hukmu yuduru ma'a illatihi. You cannot obligate a person to take a ghusl except that there's a text. You're taking a ghusl because of the individual being junub, not because it looks like the person needs to freshen up a bit. No. I'm sorry, go ahead again. Okay. This is the qaida. This is the principle. Inside of the Quran, I believe the verse is the 29th from Surah Al-Baqarah. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has created for you everything that was in the earth. He's not only created it, but He's created it and bestowed it upon you. He's made it subservient to you. Everything is for your utilization. You have access to it. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Everything. 29. So it's Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter, the 29th verse. Until there is proof and evidence of an impurity, unless there's a clear text that tells you you can't eat it, that's no. But then there are some things that go beyond what is on paper and it comes off the paper into our lives. And we say, yes, we know we can't eat pork, but there's a process of what's going on now, how they're making this particular product. It's not just the issue of they shot the animal or they killed the animal and they skinned it, they opened it up and they fried it in front of you. There's no process, Akhi. You can't eat this. As opposed to a person saying, well, they took the intestines and they grinded it up and they blended it up and they put it with some salt, they put it with some other chemical, they put it with some other flavorings, whatever the situation is, and we say now at the end of the day, there is no taste, color, or smell of an impurity. You cannot rule upon that object or material or component being impure. Why? Al-hukmu yaduru ma'a illatihi. The only reason we said pork was impure because we had a text. Now, at the end of that process, is there anything there that is going to give you the ruling based off of an illah, a purpose or a reasoning? The purpose or the reasoning with impurities is taste, color, and smell. That's the only way to identify an impurity. Taste, color, and smell. There's a text that tells you that that's what it is. It could be manipulated, altered and changed and put into something. I can't tell if that was pork or I can't tell if that was feces. They're both impure. Taste, color, and smell. Is it still remaining? Do you find traces of it? If you do, it's impure. You can't eat it, you can't drink it, you can't utilize it for purification, you can't utilize it to remove impurities. If the traces are not still present, just like when it came to water, how can you rule upon the water being impure? There's no traces of the impurities inside of it. We have a pond as big as this room. Clear water now. It's clear. We're going to take the issue of swamp off the table, maybe still confusing a lot of people. Maybe still people have prejudices. They say, no, it's clear now. Clear water, fresh water. Somebody comes to the edge. It's a young boy. He's in puberty. Doesn't understand etiquettes, relieving oneself. Just urinates in the water. It's as big as this room. He urinates in the water over here. Our brother sitting on the side, he's like, I just got to the masjid. I need to make wudu. He's on that side. This water, by narration, is bigger than qullataini. It's able to defend and neutralize itself. It's going to be pure within itself and able to purify. It can defend itself. The process of istihala is like a process of removing the impurity. You can leave the feces of an animal on the streets, and the sun can beat it down, beat it down, beat it down, and then it withers away. And the person said, about a week ago, I couldn't pray there. There was impurity there. And brother comes behind me and says, nobody came and ran no water over here. It's just gone. It's just disappeared. And I said, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to rule upon a place? The earth has been made a place of purification and prayer for me. I was only ruling upon that location being impure a week ago because of the presence of impurity. Prior to it landing there, we couldn't rule that. Now it's gone. There's no trace, no taste, color, or smell of the remaining of that particular animal. How can you continue to rule upon it being impure? That's like saying, this is how stringent this position is. That's like saying, we're playing tag. Once I catch you, I tag you, you're it forever. Something is impure, it's impure forever. There's no cleansing process that takes place. There are different means to remove impurity. Utilization of water, remove the impurity itself. The impurity itself dissolves or changes within itself. There are various means. So we can't just stay stringent upon one scope of seeing impurities and say, if it's impure, it stays impure. If it goes in impure, it comes out impure. Who says? This is why the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, with the water, Innal ma tahur, la yunajjisuhu shay. The water is pure, nothing makes it najis. Illa an taghayyara rihuhu, except if its smell changes. He's giving you qualities now. Unless you see this, don't rule on that. Al-aslu baqa'u ma kana ala ma kana. The ruling is that something stays upon its ruling as it is, as it is. Leave it as such. You had wudu, you got wudu. Don't change that you have wudu until you know that you lost wudu. Once you've lost wudu, don't say, well, you don't have wudu. The foundation is that it stays as is until certainty changes it. Water stays pure until certainty, taste, color, or smell of impurity changes it. With the absence of the impurity, it goes back to its asl. Al-hukmu yaduru ma'a illatihi wujudan wa adaman. So there are some steps that take place. And a lot of us got a few steps and we got off running. But what we continued to do was to keep that same focus and never move. And they say, no, there's more steps that take place. It's a continuous walk. It's fiqh. You may start the prayer standing and then have to sit and then have to stand back again by necessity. It doesn't just stay uniform. The same thing with impurities. Something can be pure, become impure, and then return to being pure. We could remove the impurity, we could add additional water, or it could change on its own. Sometimes the changing on its own is a process that we have a hand in. the istihala, the filtration process, triple filtration. You see sometimes on the sides of the bottle. What's that mean? They purified it, continuously purified it, purified. Not just drinking water, purified water. But what was in it? Something that you didn't want to drink before they told you. What's the ruling now? Drink it, make purification with it, remove impurities with it, unless it's a harm to your health. Let me take the sisters, because I sit with you guys all the time, inshallah. Let me take the sisters. Fadl.
And they put pieces in this cake, or they put alcohol in this cake, or they put in the cake, but you don't see it, you don't taste it, you don't smell it, there's no color, but it is written that it is or not. You have an idea? Is it permissible or is it not? With those things that
طيب. I want to take a different course because I know where you're at, and I see the way you're seeing it, and because of seeing it that particular way, this is why me and Abdul Latif had to sit looking at each other like everybody's not going to be on the same page if you go back with this. So I have to give you what allowed us at that time to expand our scope. And it's not so much General Mills or Pepsi or Johnson & Johnson determined for us what's impure or what's not impure. By narration, if it's not specifically mentioned, those aspects, that which are impure, that we know, these are impure. They have traces of smell, taste, and color. That is what we're looking for. We're not looking for the stamp, it's kosher, this, that, and the third. There's a discussion concerning it. It's not conclusive. What we're looking for, taste, color, and smell. Those are the qualities that the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, at the end of the day, he told us, this will make something najis. If it's not najis, it's going back to the asl. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has created, subdued, subjected, bestowed everything in the earth for you. Yes, not khamr. Yes, not khinzir. But the qualities of that animal that have been mixed in a particular process, if you at the end of the day cannot determine that that is still khamr, that is still khinzir, how can you make a ruling on something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already made a ruling on? He's made a ruling on what he's allowed. He's made a ruling on what he has not allowed. His messenger has told us what's the status of water. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he has told us what is the condition of what will contaminate that water. So we understand that there's a process. We understand that there are guidelines and there's a process of how things can go either left or right. It is not for any third party or third entity to determine for you or I, this is impermissible. General Mills cannot come forward now and tell us this is impermissible. Allah makes impermissible. His messenger makes impermissible. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have a process that will let us know, even behind closed doors, no matter what you do, we still have texts that clarify for us at the end of the day. No matter what you put in front of me, when I unwrap it, I have principles that I utilize to determine for myself. You don't do that for me. And this is what is going to, inshallah ta'ala, take place throughout Kitab al-Tahara. Huh? You can. I don't buy it. I don't make muffins anymore. I would tell you this. I would tell you this. I would tell you this. For an individual to make halal that which is haram, or make haram that which is halal, is prohibited. I would. If a person puts something in front of me and they said, "Akhi, this is Jello," and Sheikh Mohammed Bazmoul, he mentioned this example. This is Jello, and they use lard to make it. And they say we went through a process of istihala. They don't have to tell me we went through a process of istihala. I can obviously tell. None of the objects that you tell me, nothing here looks like an animal. First of all, anyway, intestine, bone, skin, hair, nothing looks like anything from an animal once you have a final product of Jello. So we know that something has taken place. You know what I'm saying? If the person takes a scoop and they eat it, and like, there's nothing there. A non-Muslim could taste, and I don't taste no pork. I don't taste no alcohol. So it's burnt out, or it's overcome, it's overwhelmed. The process has now neutralized it. Whatever the situation is, there's various means of processing foods and processing waters and different things that we eat. We utilize for our hair, our skin, whatever it is, to bathe and cleanse within, and so forth. What the individual has to do at the end of the day is get comfortable with the text. We still have some hangups, if you would say. At the same time, no. In color or taste? Oh, fluffy? No, when you say lighter, I don't. Is that color or text? Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. But see, now this is the other avenue. This will be the other avenue entailed in that discussion. Those aspects that are impermissible, we're not allowed to engage them ourselves. So it's not like we're going to go to the shelf and we're going to buy something and intentionally put it through a process. Say, you're not allowed to engage that. Mhm. Mhm. Well, even if they told you it's in there, but the process of istihala has taken place and there's no traces of the pork, taste, color, or smell. Is the pork present? This is where we're going. Because the asl is that you can eat everything. Mhm. This There's a verse in the Quran. No. No. The only way you or I will be in jeopardy with Allah Azza wa Jal if we do not fulfill His commands and we go against His commands and prohibitions. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا, everything is for you in the earth to eat. And then you take a stance to say something is not permissible for me, which is the positioning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide. You might say, no, I'm not going to eat that, which is supposed to be based off of text. But making a ruling now that something is impermissible when it is permissible now, this is the greater issue.
Scavenger.
Yeah, scavenger. So I told him, I said, no, in our book, everything in the sea is permissible.
Right.
And this is from the sea, so it is permissible.
Right. Right.
You know? And later, I remember a class we had on Lincoln Street for the same president. You know, we went over a lot of people like the rum raisin ice cream. A person said he went to a really fancy wedding. And what he did was he put alcohol on the dessert, lit it on fire.
Mm.
You know, you see it burn off. You know, so those are the questions that people were saying. Since I didn't eat it, I said you put alcohol on it. You know, and the person was saying, but did you smell alcohol? Did you taste alcohol? You know, because he said that's the process of something being changed. You know, and that's why I stayed in my.
No. No.
Yeah.
The issue is with all of these affairs, there are texts and there are qawaid, there are principles that help you engage and digest those texts. Yes, something may initially be labeled as being impermissible is pork. It could be from the cow, but that cow is killed in an impermissible manner. And a creature that initially is allowed for you to eat because it went through a particular process has now become impermissible for you. And it could have traces or elements of that particular animal within this. They still are impermissible. That still is najis. The carcass, the dead animal is not only impermissible, it's najis. It's just like the pork. However, if it goes through this particular process, and at the end of the day, there is no taste, color, or smell. It's not like you said, well, I got to have all three. Anyone makes impermissible in terms of water. Anyone makes impermissible in terms of digestion and drinking. If the presence is there, inequality, taste, color, or smell of anything that is najis or impermissible is ruled upon as being such, is ruled upon as being najis, is ruled upon as being impermissible. Without the presence of those qualities, could you now change the quality and classification of this water? No. It's the same thing with the food. You can't, without the presence of any of those qualities, rule upon now that that food is impermissible. You say, oh no, it went in. I saw that boy urinate in the water. It didn't overtake the water. The taste, quality, and smell of the water is not altered by that impurity. We saw it go in. Just like the person said, we saw it, it was written, we knew it went in. There's a process of how we see things that is most important that tells us which way to go. It's not so much the eye test initially. I saw him urinate in it, rule it off as being impermissible. We don't do that, akhi. إلا أن غلب على ريحه أو طعمه أو لونه. It has to now alter the water in terms of taste, color, or smell. Not just see it touch. Same thing with the food. Not so much just see it go in. Does it have a taste, color, or smell at the end of the process that is present? And these particular guidelines, these particular processes, these particular thoughts presented by the people of knowledge. As we mentioned, this process of istihala is discussed by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and he's not the first. But this is just showing you, this isn't something that is a new thought. This came with the technology of the smartphone. No. This goes back to the books of purification. Istihala, even concerning water. Impurity that will go into water, can it return back to being pure within itself and purifying other than itself? And this is the beauty of this discussion. The issue of the food, the soap, and the gum, that's a branch. If you're stumbled there, and it's not a fault, but if you're stumbled there, it's more than likely that it trickled down somewhere concerning your waters as well. You get this straight, that will fall in place. This is why we're starting here. This is the beauty of this, and this is going to unfold even more. This is not even the first narration, but this is just showing you the scoping of the sunnah, of how you see this water is through the eye of the sunnah. This is not the external factor. Well, will I get harmed? Is it going to hurt my skin? Am I going to get sick? That's not the issue. Is it pure within itself? Does it purify other than itself? It might be a topic of don't utilize it for yourself. Remove the urine. Yes, we could remove the urine with it. But this is very important because, like we said, we're trying to rescope how we see the sunnah. How you see those foods, those soaps, those shampoos being permissible was through the eye of the sunnah. We want to rescope it now, bil ilm, with knowledge. So with that, I believe the adhan is coming now, Sheikh. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا